Hey, Chris Manning here from the Locked On Cavs podcast. A very fun show today. Friend of the program, Sean Woodley, and I did a crossover, little Locked On Cavs, Locked On Raptors action for you on this one. Going through Eastern Conference, we just did our over-unders with Ben Axelrod. Part 1 and Part 2 are up right now on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this podcast. So please go check that out. Hit that subscribe button. But Sean and I are going to go through these. We're going to put the East in tiers in about 35, 40 minutes for you, kind of just continuing to gear up for the season, dive into a little bit more of this very weird, kind of interesting conference. Started with Cavs in Toronto to kind of wet your whistles for the two teams we're primarily covering here, and then dove into the rest of the East and dabbled in some stuff as well. So I think you guys will enjoy this. We'll be back tomorrow with a live YouTube event around 8 o'clock. So hit that subscribe button. Help us get to 300 by the end of the week. That's our goal this week, at the 300. We're about like 210 right now. So let's keep boosting up those numbers on the Locked On Cavs YouTube. And River Kill down on this week. A ton of great shows. But seriously, go check out those Ben Axelrod episodes if you haven't already. Also want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by our friends at Rock Auto. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com and tell them Locked On sent you.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, what's going on? Sean Woodley here from Locked On Raptors, joined by Chris Manning of Locked On Cavs. Chris, how's it going, man? It's been a while.
And, it's going good. It feels good that we're getting to do this. The people obviously have been demanding that we bring this back. There's been an outcry from the general public that you and I vibe through the East. We talk about this weird conference. I just did an over-unders pod, just kind of wading our way through it. Kind of did a little draft of that with some folks, and I still don't know what I think of this conference. I think it is. There are two teams I think are really good, and then the rest I'm just like, you could convince me of a lot of different things. So I'm excited to see what you think about a lot of this.
Yeah, so we are going to dive into 1 through 15 of the Eastern Conference and just kind of, hit on every team, hit on what we thought about their offseason, hit on where we think their sort of range of outcomes will be. But of course, we'll start with the two teams that we cover, Chris, because you got to start with the big stuff off top. Let's start with the Cavs, because the Cavs have been, I think, the busier team this offseason. The Raptors had some high-profile losses, in particular one high-profile loss in Kyle Lowry. But, the Cavs have been wheeling and dealing all over the place. They obviously picked high. They had Evan Mobley come to them at number 3. They have signed Lauri Markkanen in a sign and trade for some reason that I don't understand. And they traded away Larry Nance in the process, which seems like a downgrade to me. But who am I to say what Kobe Altman is doing? Let's just dive into the Cavs here, Chris. Was their offseason good? Are you happy with what they've done? Obviously, they're more talented and better set up for the future than they were when the offseason began because they got Evan Mobley. But where are you at with sort of the way the team has been built here? Because, Colin Sexton's still there. Ben Simmons rumors still fly around, even though I don't really see how much that makes a lot of sense. It's been a bizarre offseason.
Kevin Love for Ben Simmons. Who says no, Sean? Who says no?
I mean, maybe the Cavs at this point. I don't know.
It
seems like nobody wants Ben Simmons, but
no one wants Kevin Love either.
I just don't know why the Cavs would want to break up the Lauri Markkanen and Kevin Love 3-4 combination.
I mean,
there's a real Andrea Bargnani playing the 3 potential.
When you could potentially play Jared Allen, Lauri Markkanen, and Kevin Love, Taco Fall, and Dean Wade all together at the same time, you got to do it.
Absolutely,
you got to do it. I'm a little lower than I was at the end of last season at this point. I think they're going to miss Nance. I think as a guy who moved the ball well, a guy who defends really well, is versatile. Obviously, some health concerns that he's had, I think, throughout his career that kind of limit sort of his effectiveness. But I think Markkanen's a better shooter, and I think that's you can talk yourself into that making sense. I liked the Rubio trade, just 'cause I think they needed that kind of veteran guy to kind of be a good backup point guard. I think Mobley's just going to take some time. I just think he's really skinny. This team, the infrastructure is not there to kind of let him just sort of get into a clean role and then expand out of it organically. He's going to get a lot thrown at him, I think. And I'm curious to see how he handles it. Maybe he exceeds expectations, but this is going to be a really young team. If we're placing them sort of in tiers, I I thought maybe at the end of last year, I thought, okay, if they get some growth, if they kind of can make a couple of meaningful acquisitions and keep the core of this roster intact, like maybe this is a team that can kind of make a run at a play-in spot next year, right? Like that's, I think, like the leveling up you're hoping for. And I'm a little less optimistic now that is realistic. I just don't know if the talent is there for that this year, unless like Darius Garland takes a massive leap. If Mobley is just like incredible from day one, like there are things that could propel you there. But like I think this is a really young team that has good players that is still like a year away, and especially with like teams like Chicago really like trying to improve. Boston, like you have teams in that 7 to 10 range that I think all are on paper should be better, including and two teams that were outside of that top 10 in Chicago and Toronto that I think on paper are definitely better than the Cavs. Sure. So I think it's an uphill battle for them. If I'm putting them in a tier, I think they're in that bottom three, but I would place them where they finished last year, 13th. But in that bottom three tier of Orlando and Detroit. And if injuries happen, if everything goes sideways for whatever reason, like this could be a really, really, really bad team again.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the Cavs is that it's a lot better than it used to be. I remember a couple years ago, I think during the 2019-20 season, watching a Raptors-Cavs New Year's Eve game and thinking, this Cavs team is one of the worst basketball teams I've ever seen. Like, they just have no idea what they're doing at any point. That Raptors team was just, like, full of dad energy, and they were just absolutely pasting the Cavs whenever they played during that kind of stretch. They're better than that now, and I'm excited to see what Mobley's going to do. I think Okoro kind of got slept on as a really good rookie last season. I'm excited for what he can do potentially down the line as well. The Sexton thing is kind of this weird like elephant in the room that I'm not sure how to really reckon with, but like if he is scoring 20-something points for you on reasonable efficiency, that's not a bad guy to have on your team, even if they've kind of telegraphed that maybe they don't want him around anymore.
Well, I think that was a little bit of CAA being like, we want to get our guy paid, and I think you've seen some of that I think they've seen like what like happened with Dennis Schroeder, where it's like the market can just fall out of the bottom on you, and that is a really tricky thing. So
yeah, well, either way, I think I'm with you. I think the Cavs I would put in that sort of bottom tier. I think Orlando, Detroit, those are two very different bad teams. I'm going to enjoy watching Detroit this season. I can't say the same for Orlando. I think the Cavs will be kind of somewhere in the middle, and Mobley is probably going to be worth the price of admission alone. So maybe that's enough to kind of keep people happy and satiated in Cleveland. As far as the Raptors go, I mean, fire your question for me about the Raptors. Because, I've been talking about this team in all different ways, and I feel like maybe I've kind of gotten stuck in my ways of the way I've looked at them. So I'm excited for an outside perspective. Grill me on the Raptors, Chris.
So this is what I took. I felt very bad for them last year just because, like, I think spending a year in Tampa during COVID sounds awful.
Yeah, it sucked.
Like Florida, hot take, not a place I'd want to be right now. Not a place I would want to like have to live where part of my job is like not getting the coronavirus pre the vaccine rollout and everything, right? Like that is just an incredibly tricky place to be when your lives are already limited. I didn't seem like they were ever comfortable or happy, right? So I'm guessing like I want to ask you like how much of last year for Toronto was like a natural step back with like Lowry getting a little older, like you kind of in a transition year of some sort. And then obviously like that is now gone where, Kyle is on the Heat now. Like, you bring in Scotty Barnes, your Dragic is in there, some slight roster changes, but the core of aside from Lowry is still sort of there. Nick Nurse is obviously still there. So how much of last year's struggles are, hey, like weird year, just we got kind of hit by this bizarre year. And we'll be able to bounce back in some way this year. And how much is it just like this is the Raptors are in the middle of kind of progressing into whatever is next?
Yeah, it's weird because like it is definitely a transitional type season coming up. Like you lose Kyle Lowry, you draft Scotty Barnes 4th overall. Like there's going to be, I think, a bit of a heightened, focus put on player development and kind of playing the long game here. But I also think they can be really good in the process, and they've kind of mastered this over the last decade or so of both developing and competing at the same time. And it's not easy to do, but they kind of have like the established core and the sort of shadow core in place to kind of do that right now. It's weird because I think during last season, most Raptors fans kind of agreed, oh, like this is clearly a fake season. This is stupid. They've gone 1-13 in March because their 3 best players missed the entire month with COVID, and they're, they don't have any center play. They lose Gasol and Ibaka for a I think thought out gamble at the potential of maybe landing Giannis in the summer of 2021. Even though it didn't happen, I still think you line up yourself to be in position to strike if that can happen. And I think it was a gamble worth making, but that clearly, obviously, hurt them when it came to center depth. They went from 48 minutes of good center play to like 4 minutes of good center play. And those were the minutes when OG Anunoby slid down and played the 5. Like, it was brutal. And then, by the end of the season, things had gotten so far off the rails and they were so depleted and so injured and so racked with COVID that I don't think anything in the last couple of months really means anything for this team other than the fact that they brought Khem Birch in and he looked like the best center they've had since Pete Chris Bosh in some moments, or at least it felt like that in comparison to Aaron Baines. And so, it's they're going to be not the sort of top 4 Eastern Conference contender that we kind of know them to be since 2013. Like, they're going to, I think, struggle at times this year. It's going to be more of a hope they can get into the play-in type of thing, but I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. And I think there's lots of reason to think that they were a pretty good team in disguise last year that just kind of ran into circumstance more than anything. I mean, they turned their season around in the middle after a really brutal start, a 2-8 start. They ended up pulling to 17-17. And that was the time where they were playing small ball and they were really leaning into, okay, we have all these like weird sort of gangly forwards and we have lots of good guard play. Let's just lean into it and play small. And they did, and they won a ton of games. And then COVID hit their team after they had beaten the Sixers and the Bucks twice over the course of a week. And then everything was lost. And so, you lose Kyle Lowry, you lose some of that sort of, cachet that you would have had.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like, Fred VanVleet's a very good player. Pascal Siakam quietly had a very good season last year and really returned to form by season's end. But because narrative, people still kind of assume, oh, Pascal's just the guy from the bubble and nothing else. And all he does is spin, which is obviously stupid. And then you have OG Anunoby, who's kind of like the wild card in all of this. And if he kind of makes good on the increased usage and stabilized efficiency that he showed in the back part of last season, you're looking at a guy who could really kind of change the floor and ceiling of this team. So, it's not going to be the same as it's been, but I don't think it's going to be bad. And the lack of expectation going in kind of makes it fun and interesting. I'd kind of peg them 7-10 in the Eastern Conference. I kind of think they're going to be in the play-in one way or another, whether they're hosting it, whether they're, going on the road to play somewhere. I think either way, they feel like a play-in team to me. Am I overestimating, do you think, what the Raptors can be?
I think I like the infrastructure. Like, I love VanVleet. I love OG has become one of my favorite sort of kind of non like star guys. You have Siakam pilled me where I'm just convinced that he's like fine and good, and like we should stop like freaking out over stuff sometimes. The center play. I mean, if you just get good center play, I think that's the thing. I guess like I wonder, like, is Malachi Flynn like ready? Like I just thought Suggs felt like such a Raptors guy, and like. I wonder what Barnes is giving you in year one. Like, I think he's really interesting. He was really, when I saw him in Summer League, he was much longer than I realized. And
he's enormous. He's
just like a freakishly long dude. And like there's some very fun stuff you can do with that. But I wonder, like, is Flynn ready? Like, what is Dragic's sort of involvement? Like, there are questions that I think that are fair, but like you have Nick Nurse, a really good coach. The infrastructure there, I think I would just say that I would guess that the ill-time injury to VanVleet, center play not coming together, like, OG regressing in some way, like if there are things that don't break, I think the margin for error for them to like not be a playing team, it feels there to me, right? Like, this is just a franchise that I think is very well run. Probably the most impactful thing they did this summer is like get Masai to stick around. Like, that's probably the biggest thing that they did in terms of keeping that infrastructure in place. But it's like, look at all these other teams except for Washington, like in that 7-10 range. So Boston, Washington, Indiana, Charlotte, you're betting on like year 2 of LaMelo, like, and some upside there. Like, there's some riskiness there, but there's a lot of upside there. Indiana brings a Rick Carlisle, like, has a very good stable of talent as well. Washington has Beal at the very least, and we'll see if some of the changes they've made at coach and bringing in Dinwiddie and things sort of help them. Boston, obviously, new coach, change up the roster a little bit. We'll see if they can kind of, and not Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum also had COVID and was like a 22-year-old man, like ravaged by it. So like, problem for them. Yeah. Boston at 11, like, spent a bunch of money in hopes of just like being better and getting Lonzo and DeMar and obviously traded for Vooch last year. So like, I think the margin for error is not, it's thin, I think, for these teams. And like, it's the same reason why I think the Cavs are a little bit lower and like why they're playing odds are kind of unlikely, because I think that 7 to 11 range, 7 to 12 range is not, particularly like none of these teams are going to win the title, but they're all solid in their own ways. And a lot of them have made it a real attempt at leveling up in a way that I think Cleveland and Toronto in different ways really haven't in this offseason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. And I think we should maybe pivot our attention to that sort of 7 through 15-ish range, because that's where both of our teams figure to fall in the Eastern Conference. We'll get to those teams in just 1 second here, Chris. But first, we should tell the people about Sweat Block. I don't know about you, Chris, but I sweat a lot, dude. It's bad. Yeah. It's a problem. It's messy. And I have to choose my shirts based on that very fact. And it's annoying as hell. But either way, don't worry about it, because Sweat Block is here with their antiperspirant wipes. They have a dry shirt guarantee. If Sweat Block doesn't keep you dry, you get your money back. And this is the answer for people who sweat excessively. It is stronger and more effective than most clinical antiperspirants. You simply apply Sweat Block at night before bedtime, go to bed. The next morning, you wake up, wash, and go about your day without worrying about sweat. Guaranteed. I know this is going to sound too good to be true, but I am literally a Sweat Block customer now, and I have rave reviews. It's working wonderfully. I can wear all of my shirts in public now. It's fantastic. All of my shirts are so happy. They get to see the light of day and not just be inside my dingy little apartment. Although this isn't that dingy. I guess the natural light in here is kind of
don't
right.
Don't undersell yourself. It's a given nice apartment, Sean. Nice.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. It's very appreciated, and Sweat Block is appreciated by me as well. No more pitting out. No more picking your shirts based on which one will hide sweat better. If you or someone you love deals with excessive sweating like I do, I don't know if do we ask Chris? Chris, do you sweat excessively?
Oh, absolutely. Like Sweat Block is a game changer. Their stick deodorant also a game changer. When we got that little hose back, wonderful stuff from our friends at Sweat Block.
Absolutely. And you have to check them out too. Just get it today for 20% off at sweatblock.com with the promo code LOCKEDON, or at Amazon and CVS.
Gotta also tell you about our friends at Stat Hero. And look, did you know 85% of people play daily fantasy sports lose? I am among that number. I lose all the time.
Me too. Yep, I'm terrible.
I'm the George Kittle in terms of 85 of losing in DFS. And is that really surprising? The game is rigged against you. You're playing against thousands of other lineups, not to mention experts who have more tools and more time. You don't stand a chance. So that's why I'm introducing Stat Hero. It's the first ever daily fantasy sports book that puts the player in control and winning in with reach. Here's how it works. Stat Hero shows you their lineups and dares you to beat them. It's you versus the house in a head-to-head fantasy matchup. It's you name the stakes. It is winner take all. It's like the game 7 of DFS here, and you have the advantage. Stat Hero is showing you their lineups ahead of time. No one else does that. You're in control. Stat Hero is DFS the way it was meant to be, one-on-one. So play Stat Hero now and change the odds. Sean, I mean, DFS, really hard. Stat Hero is a better way to do it.
Yeah, instead of going against a bunch of bots, you are up against just the one person, one site, one sentient being that's picked a lineup, and you just have to beat it. It seems pretty good to me. It's like tossing a coin. That's good odds, right? 50-50. I would take those odds any day at a casino or in some sort of betting fashion.
Yes. Go to stathero.com/lockedon and sign up for free. And right now, you can get 3 times back on your first play. They're giving you a 300% match. That is unheard of. So go to stathero.com/lockedon, stathero.com/lockedon.
All right, Chris, let's continue on here, shall we? And run through 7 through 15 or ish. We won't have to spend all this time on all these teams. We've kind of already talked about Detroit and Orlando. They're probably going to be 14-15.
Yeah,
very rebuilding ass teams. Do you have any sort of thoughts, quick stray ideas on them?
I like on the over-under pod I did. I hammered the under in both of those teams. I think they're both going to be really bad, and I think Orlando might be the worst team in the league.
Yeah, they're just I'm glad that they have leaned into rebuilding for sure. It's long overdue, 5 years overdue probably, but it's just still a mismatch of forwards who can only play defense and guards who were unsure if they can shoot. And it's just young teams lose a lot of games, and this is about as young as a team gets. So yeah, I don't have terribly high hopes for the Magic. I think the reason I'm a little higher on the Pistons is that at least their lineup constructions make sense. You can envision a Cade, Killian Hayes, Sadiq Bey, Jeremy Grant, beef stew lineup that makes a lot of sense and is actually maybe a positive on the floor. It's where the rest of the roster comes in that's probably going to be an issue. But
also, is Killian Hayes good?
There is nice.
Is Killian Hayes good? I don't know if he's good.
We don't know.
Yeah, I don't Cade. I think is going to be great. I loved Isaiah Stewart when I watched him last year. Jeremy Grant had a great year last year. Sadiq Bey obviously was pretty impressive. Killian Hayes is just a massive question mark for me. Yeah. I wouldn't be shocked if they finished ahead of the Cavs, to be honest with you. If Cade is just phenomenal and the Cavs just kind of don't gel and have some Cavs-y kind of chaos to them. And like if, let's say like JB Bickerstaff gets fired and the vibes just tank and like that feels like a Cavs thing, you know? And like Dwayne Casey, I feel like is a very steady ship in what's going on in Detroit right now.
Dwayne Casey, good coach. You will hear no other sentiment about Dwayne Casey than that from me. You know, playoff series against the Cavs, notwithstanding, it's LeBron's fault. It's not Dwayne Casey's fault, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you do there, man. It's just like what are you supposed to do? Yeah,
I mean, not having CJ Miles guard Kevin Love in the post was maybe job number one, but we don't need to denigrate Dwayne Casey. He's wonderful. He's going to do a really good job with that young Pistons team, and I think the structure they have is quite nice.
Cavs legend CJ Miles, sir. You put some respect on that name.
So we're kind of, I think, in agreement that at 13 we'll probably see the Cavs there, and then I think like 12 through 7. You know, I said the Raptors' range of outcomes was 7 through 10. It's probably 7 through 12 more realistically, and the teams in that range are many. There's the Hornets, there's the Bulls, there's the Wizards, there's the Raptors, there's the Pacers. I guess you could throw in like maybe the Celtics as well. The Knicks still exist too. I keep forgetting about the Knicks existing and not being an embarrassing garbage show. Although I kind of think maybe we start with them. I think we could see a bit of a drop back to earth for the Knicks a little bit this season. Like last year was nice, was wonderful. Julius Randle was a wonderful story. I am not entirely in love with what they did with their offseason, like Evan Fournier, okay. And I kind of feel like as much as everybody loves Tibbs and as much as, you know, people are so in on Tibbs in year one, maybe that messaging gets a little bit sort of dullened over the course of time. And also I think like so many teams were bizarrely afflicted by COVID last season. The Knicks kind of got by scot-free, and it felt like their really impressive 5 seed or 4 seed, whatever they ended up being, was kind of built off of the misfortune of other teams more than of the Knicks being really great. My whole thing with the Knicks last season was I thought they were more effectively annoying than actually good. And I'm not sure if that holds up when the playing field's a little bit more even, or there are fewer teams that are kind of dealing with COVID stuff all season long. Am I too low on everybody's favorite team, the New York Knicks, Chris?
So I think there's a case that they'll be fine just because like Fournier is upgrading over like some kind of guard play, right? Like it's not like they were getting like robust guard play from like Reggie Bullock, who I like, but like I think Fournier is an upgrade, at least in the regular season. I like Kemba Walker. We don't know exactly what you're getting there, but like he should be better than Elfrid Payton, who's like not good. You know what I mean? Like sure. I think there are things about their roster that like I can see it where they're like stable-ish from last year. I don't think this is like a championship team. And like if Miami is better in the regular season, if Boston, who I guess of these like teams, I kind of am gonna make just because I think the Jays are both really good. And if Udoka hits as a coach, like I think there could be like a leap there from Boston just because they have those two really, really good wing players, and we'll see what kind of happens at the point guard spot and everything. But like I just think there's some upside on that team, and like maybe New York is still like sliding a little bit, but like I also just think they like even if the long-term roster building is a little wonky because like you paid Fournier a bunch of money, like I can see like just improvement at those positions manifesting themselves in a certain way. And like sometimes like I think with the coaching thing, it's like Tibbs could wear himself out in like 3-4 years with his team, but like it seemed like it resonated last year. The guys that really helped Julius Randle, I think Kenny Payne is the assistant coach who worked with him in Kentucky and then now works with him with the Knicks, is very well thought of. Like that, like the infrastructure still feels there to me. And it doesn't feel like I don't feel like they're as prime for a step back. I think the team in this range that I feel like the most conflicted about is probably just Washington, because like, I don't know what you're getting out of Spencer Dinwiddie post ACL, post a year off. You know, what is Wes Unseld Jr. like as a coach? Like, I think like, again, like another offensive minded assistant that should like modernize what Scott Brooks was doing. But like, what does that look like? I think all these teams have questions, but I tend to think that the Knicks sort of might be okay. I kind of think it's interesting that like we didn't lump Atlanta in with this like a mass in the middle.
Yeah, I just think Atlanta's really good. And I was a skeptic last year, but like seeing them in the playoffs and just how many good players they have, it's just like endless good players at all times. And they were missing a few of said good players in the playoffs last season for, you know, various times. DeAndre Hunter, Bogdan missed some time. I think Atlanta is going to be like a final segment kind of team where we dig into the sort of top of the East. Okay. I just think like, I don't know. They feel like a team that's going to rack up a lot of wins, even if maybe they have like a ceiling in the postseason. You know, back to my Knicks point just for a sec. I think as much as I like Walker and Fournier as quote unquote upgrades for the team, those two guys do not at all fit like Tom Thibodeau's play defense like maniacs type of scheme. And That's where I have a little bit of concern that maybe they kind of, in the interest of upgrading talent, lose the identity that got them to where they got last year. And that's why I'm a little bit concerned. I just, and maybe I need another year to believe that Julius Randle is an all NBA player, I guess. I'm just a skeptic. And I think years and years of the Knicks, like, toying with being good and then becoming an embarrassment in short order, that's kind of, maybe poisoned my brain here a little bit. Let me ask you this, Chris. So we've kind of lumped all these teams 7 through 12 into a group. We don't have to go into detail on all these teams because we don't have time for that. But if you had to pick right now, assuming 13, 14, 15 in some orders, Detroit, Orlando, Cleveland, if you had to pick right now the two teams that miss out on the play-in from this mass of teams, just, gut instinct reaction, who do you have missing out and being in those 11 and 12 spots?
Washington is one.
Yeah.
And then I think I would get it down to Charlotte or Toronto for the other.
Yeah, fair enough. I think...
I don't feel good about the Toronto one. I like Charlotte. I think James Borrego is a really good coach. LaMelo Ball rocks. Like they have, like their infrastructure is also good. Like they have a bunch of good players. It's just like this is competitive. I guess Indiana is like also like another risky one because like if like weird, if Brogdon gets hurt, if LeVert who has injury concerns in the past gets hurt, if Carlisle just like doesn't mesh with this group right away, like that's a concern. I feel like the one I feel the most sure about as a cop-out answer is just Washington as far as them missing, because I think Chicago like definitely should be better. And I don't know if I think I think all these teams have a case to be better in some ways. Washington, I don't know what their case to be necessarily better is, aside from like improvement in certain spots and stuff.
Yeah, I think Washington I would put in there too. Like Beal's amazing. And you mentioned like maybe Wes Unseld comes in and fixes the offense a little. I don't think the offense is really the problem there. It's the fact that they have exactly 0 good defenders on that team. And I don't know where they're getting stops from. I guess Hachimura became a pretty good defender last season. But if, Hachimura is the anchor of your defense, that's probably going to be an issue. So I'm going to say, I would say the Wizards 12. And then for me, I think Toronto, Charlotte, Indiana are kind of the 3 that'll be fighting for that spot. I think I kind of trust Toronto's like defensive floor.
I trust Nick Nurse
more. Nick Nurse is also a good coach. And my thing with the Pacers is like, yes, Nate Bjorkgren was a bad coach for lots of different reasons. But if one of the things that the Pacers didn't like was the fact that he yelled a lot, they're not going to like Rick Carlisle either. It's like,
but like they are getting
like with just like a more intense version with maybe some of the less problematic parts involved.
Yeah, well, like has won a title, and they are getting TJ Warren back, and they'll have so it's like I wonder if there's just like a little more. I don't know. That could just be like extremely goofy and weird. A lot of these teams could be extremely goofy and weird. Like the Celtics, like we haven't really like. It's weird for you and I to go through a Celtic. Hi, John Krause, if you're watching, hello. But like for us to go through a pod here and not like kind of not really like throw some stuff at Boston because like it's kind of wild that they're like trying to put the Al Horford thing like back, like in the Al Horford magic, like back in the bottle, so to speak, as like a fix. And like Robert Williams like has to prove that he can play more than like 20 minutes a game and stay healthy and still be effective. Like there are questions there. It's just sort of like hand gestures at Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Like
they're very good.
Like the Jays are good. So
like I would say of this, like if we're lumping them into the 7 through 12 range, I would say they're the most likely team to finish in the top 6. I think that's fair. And I think the Bulls are probably in that. Like those, those are like the 6-7 teams to me. And maybe we should pivot to those teams and tell people about a lovely sponsor before we do that, Chris. And that lovely sponsor today is rockauto.com. I don't know about you, Chris, but I'm a dum-dum when it comes to cars. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I don't know where things go. I went to the mechanic on, what day was it? Friday? I don't know. I got an oil change, and I'm lucky that nothing was wrong with the car because I would have gotten fleeced surely if a part needed replacing because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what parts go together. They tell me how things all work, and it just goes through one ear and out the other. But Rock Auto is here for the do-it-yourselfers, the people at home sort of worried about mechanics fleecing them, and everyone in between. And they are making you save a lot of money on parts. It's just as easy as that. They are a family-owned business. They've been doing it for 20 years, and their prices are reliably low for every customer. And it's not just prices. You get choice with rockauto.com. Most mechanics will have one version of the part you need, whereas Rock Auto is going to have brand specifications, prices to choose from, and you get to pick the part that works best for your budget and for your vehicle. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck, and write Locked On in their "How Did You Hear About Us" box to know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the car parts you will ever need at rockauto.com. All right, Chris, let's round this out and go through, I guess, the contender class of the Eastern Conference. Obviously, the defending champion Bucks are there. The Nets are there. The Heat are there after their offseason moves, I would say, if a little bit of a tier lower. The Hawks are there. The Sixers are there, I think. Who knows? I don't know what's going on in Philly at all.
I think that's a good place to start because I firmly have two teams that are in the top of the top, and that's Brooklyn and Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Just because of like the Ben Simmons stuff, like, and what I don't know like what that even looks like is like how to sort of suss it out. I only have two teams in that very, very top tier. Mm-hmm. And I think Brooklyn like should overwhelmingly be the favorite to win the NBA title this year.
Yeah, they're insane. They should easily walk. If they don't, it's kind of an embarrassment.
Yeah, it's ridiculous like how much talent that team has, assuming they're healthy and everything. And Milwaukee won the title, and like I'm like Giannis rocks, and like I love Drew and I love Middleton, and that team's really good. So I don't like have like much to say about those two other than like I think they're the best two. Mm-hmm. So like Philly won the conference last year. They had the best record in the East. Embiid is amazing.
Yep.
I just like the Simmons thing of it all is sort of just like are you gonna be able to trade him? Can you like put him in like Philly seems like the worst city to like have him like show up and play in front of.
Yeah.
As this is going on. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't seem like good for anybody. Like the whatever is going on there, even though like I think Doc's a good coach, like I like a lot of the guys they have, like Seth Curry obviously was very good for them last year. Like, I don't know what to do. The Simmons thing just makes the Sixers just like this amalgam of chaos in my head almost.
Yeah. I mean, I could totally envision the image now, like game one of the season, Simmons comes out of the tunnel and they're throwing wet sandwiches at him. You know, whatever they sell in Philly, whatever greasy nonsense sandwiches they have. Cheesesteaks are garbage. Anyway, wow. Just throwing at Philly hate today, but that's fine. It's buried in the back segment. Maybe all the Philly people have tuned out. But yeah, it's like even if Simmons comes back, I think Embiid gives you like a high enough floor that you're going to be in the sort of home court advantage conversation anyway. Like he's that good and they have enough other guys on that team. You know, maybe you get some, improvement from Maxey if he's still there, I guess. And Thibault maybe learns how to shoot a jumper once. And then, maybe Jaden Springer, who, God, I love Jaden Springer around draft time. Maybe he comes in and is like a surprise rookie. If you're hanging your hopes on Jaden Springer, not the best thing probably, but Embiid is so good that it kind of is hard to talk about this team. And I guess, your team's been involved in the Simmons conversations. The Raptors, I guess, have been tangentially tied to them. The Blazers as well. Is there a single Simmons trade that has been sort of circulated out there that if it goes down, you would say, oh, yeah, the Sixers are markedly better? Because I think there's probably a couple out there, but it's hard to find them. And you, of course, need both teams to say yes to them, which is obviously the big stumbling block here because the Sixers are asking for a ridiculous ransom for their extremely depreciated player.
Well, and like their window is like right now. You have Joel Embiid now. Like you need to go now. I don't think the Cavs offer makes them better.
No.
If Indiana were to do like Brogdon as like a centerpiece, I think that would probably make them better just because like you'd get that ball creation stuff.
And then you'd have Simmons, Sabonis, and Turner playing together in a front court that would drive everybody insane.
Look, Caitlin Cooper would get to write about it, and we get to hear Tony's talk about it, and that's like enough. That's just I profit. They suffer, I profit. What's the Toronto offer?
There is no Toronto offer. It doesn't make any sense. There's not a Toronto offer. Like this is, we talked about this on last week's podcast. You can go back
like
they would want
Van Vliet, and like why the hell would Toronto give up Van Vliet?
Yeah, the Raptors are not trading Fred Van Vliet in the year where they've just lost Kyle Lowry as well. This is a team that cares about culture. They care about passing the baton and all this stuff. Trading Van Vliet for Ben Simmons, who's just going to create more headaches, is by no means the move. They're not that committed to Vision 6'9" to go and trade away their new guy who has the keys to the franchise for guys that they're not sure if they can give the keys to.
It's not the Kawhi thing where it's like, okay, like, we're going for a title. Like the Ben Simmons acquisition doesn't like take you to like a title window right there. I guess like it's just like just trade him for McCollum at this point, and then like I think that or Brogdon would probably make them a little better, at least function a little bit better. I guess like if the Kings were willing to like do some of the stuff they were like one of those I guess like it would have to be you would think it would probably be Halliburton and like Hield. I think that would probably make them better too, just because the shooting is always necessary around Embiid and stuff. So
sure.
But it's like those 3 ones. Like if the Cavs offer is like Sexton, I guess you're dumping Love's contract somewhere, and like because you got to make the money work. Like I think Sexton's good. I don't think he's like the DNA of player you kind of need around Embiid as like a shooter creator type. Like I think it's Brogdon more is like the archetype, and then McCollum and Halliburton and Hield.
Well, you don't like the Colin Sexton Andre Drummond tandem, Chris? You're not a fan?
Look,
you don't think that can help spearhead the Sixers run to a title?
HR here? Can I like call HR and bring them in here to mediate? Because forgot Andre Drummond was on the Sixers, and that makes me infinitely lower in the East because he's not that good. So would you have Milwaukee Atlanta or Miami?
Ooh, good question. I would say I would have Atlanta. I think I'd have Atlanta 3 in terms of Eastern Conference regular season standings.
Okay.
I think my sort of standings would go Nets, Bucks, then Atlanta, because I just think they have a lot of good players and will just win a lot of games. And like the run they went on after they hired McMillan last season was pretty impressive, and it would have translated into like a 50-something plus win team. Mm-hmm. I think 4, I guess I'll put the Sixers for now, which is like a big stupid question mark, and then the Heat probably 5. Although I think the Heat are probably the 3rd most playoff dangerous team in the Eastern Conference at this point, if that makes sense.
We're like a cliche of ourselves in agreeing with that, because like the Heat culture, the Heat playoff thing is like, but it's like, like
I have Kyle Lowry. He's very good.
They have Kyle Lowry.
He's on that team now.
Kyle, Jimmy, and Bam is like annoying as hell to play in a playoff series.
And then PJ Tucker just like shooting 1-3 a game and defending everybody like a monster. Like, that's gonna be a good team.
And like if Tyler Hero bounces back at all, like you have another useful guard. Like the DNA of a really good team is definitely there.
And like I think their lack of depth could hurt them in the regular season wins wise, but like when you get to the playoffs and you're playing 7 guys anyway, they have 7 very good guys.
They're all like kind of old. Like Lowry and PJ are both kind of old, and like I mean like they're still using a roster spot on Udonis, and like Markieff Morris was like a offseason acquisition for them. So like I also just feel like they're a team that like someone random is just going to end up like mattering for them in a way that we're just like, it just happens. Like,
like Gabe Vincent or something like that.
Yeah. Like someone we're not talking about now is just like,
Max Strus becomes like the new Klay Thompson or something garbage like that.
Yeah. Maybe they actually can rehabilitate Victor Oladipo, which feels like a massive if.
I forgot Oladipo's still there too. Yes.
But it's like they have Bam, Jimmy. Like if you're looking like a playoff rotation, it's Lowry, Bam, Jimmy, Oladipo, you would think, Duncan Robinson, PJ Tucker, Tyler Hero, and then like you have Dwayne Dedmon is like a backup center, and Markieff Morris is around. Like you have like the
Haslam comes in for punches.
Why not? You have like 7 guys that are like proven dudes, and like if Oladipo is like healthy or like 80% of healthy or whatever he can be at this point, like there's a clear role for him to just be like rad and then being really annoying to play. And like that's and like again, Spoelstra, I think Spoelstra's probably the best coach in the league and like has been for a while. He's very good. And like they're gonna be annoying as hell to play. They're just like I mean like I think a little of the shine feels rubbed off because the Bucks just kind of handled those demons last year in the playoffs and just kind of cruised by them. But like I just kind of think like, they'll barring injury and barring like age catching up with Kyle or PJ or like if they get a freak injury to Jimmy or Bam, like they'll probably be really, really good. But I
You know
tend to
who's
think
never
you're right.
lost to the Bucks in the playoffs is Kyle Lowry. He usually torments them hilariously, actually.
Yeah, Kyle Lowry, very good. But I agree with you. I think I agree with you on that order too. I think I go Brooklyn, then Milwaukee, then Atlanta, and then like slide the Sixers in a 4 just because of the weirdness around that team right now, and then the Heat after that.
And then we have 2 teams to talk about here, and then we'll get the hell out of here. The Bulls and the Celtics. We kind of lumped the Celtics into the 7 through 12. Didn't really lump the Bulls in there. Maybe that's by mistake. Maybe 6 through 12 is more the more accurate sort of clumping that we should be doing here. Where are you at on the Bulls, man? Because I am like super excited about this team. They're going to be dumb and weird and never defend. And I think they're going to win a ton of regular season games and flame out hilariously in the postseason. And I just can't wait to watch it. I love this weirdo team that has just like said, you know what? We've been so bad for so long. We just want to be something respectable. And they've gotten a whole lot of respectable players in the door, which is very nice and kind of refreshing, considering a lot of like the way people think about basketball was must win titles or season is failure. I kind of like that the Bulls are going for, how about we just like put out a good basketball team for the first time in a half decade? And I think they're going to do that. Where are you at, Bulls, Celtics? Do you have one higher than the other? Are they kind of in the same tier for you? What's your sort of read on those 2 teams before we wrap up here?
I'm going to go Boston ahead of them just because I think Tatum is the best player in either team.
Sure.
And I just think the world of him and Jaylen Brown, and we'll see about the rest of it. And I just need to see what happens with the Bulls. Like, there's so much riding on Patrick Williams.
Yeah.
He is a massively important swing piece for them. Their roster is still a little wonky. Like, what is Kobe White's role in this team now?
Six man, I guess.
But they signed Caruso, and Caruso is better and like legitimately a very good defender who can shoot and like handle the ball a little bit for you. So like,
sure.
I think I think Lonzo is like maybe like not underrated, but like is also like I think good. DeMar I think has people that like I could understand if you like didn't watch a lot of the Spurs the last couple of years if you're just busy or like not like you're watching other teams or whatever.
You don't want to watch depressing 34 win babasketball. Yeah,
look, I love Jakob Poeltl, and so like that's my vibe right there.
That's my dude too, man.
Love Jakob. But like DeMar has become like a really good playmaker that he just like wasn't with Toronto. He just is now. And like if that carries over outside of San Antonio, like they have the ingredients for a really good team. Levine is a ton of fun to watch. But I kind of need to see it, and I need to see what the defense looks like because like if Vooch is your backline center, and DeMar for as good as he is, like isn't a great defender.
Oh, he's
Levine is not a good defender. Like has improved maybe a little bit, but like isn't good. Like you're banking on like Lonzo and Patrick Williams like holding up your defense, and that's like really hard. And then like again, what does the rest of the roster look like? Do they I mean like I'm asking just I guess I have to like do they miss Laurie at all? Like I don't know, but I tend I mean I just like the shooting and like some Bulls people that I've talked to are like a little higher than him than I tend to be, and I don't know, man. It's quite a weird team in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, Vooch is just like a more comprehensive and better version of like a stretch 5, right? Because he does other things on top of shooting threes well. So I don't think they're going to miss marketing at all. I think I would put the Bulls ahead of the Celtics in the regular season, just because I think they'll pick up a lot of wins because they have, a really high offensive ceiling. They might be like a top 5 offense in the league. I don't think that's crazy. And I think the Celtics are probably more of a playoff ready team, honestly. Like they have the 2 J's. After that, like, I don't know if Dennis Schroeder is your vehicle to winning 55 games.
Oh, I forgot about him.
Yeah. So I would say, I don't think the Celtics are going to be like the lost cause they were last year. I think they're probably a pretty dangerous playoff team. And honestly, I could see both of these teams finishing ahead of Miami in the regular season and then Miami like winning a play-in game and just kind of going on a run of terror. But,
but there has to, I think there's got to be incentive for all these teams to not be 7 or 8 or in the play-in because you don't want to play Milwaukee or Brooklyn around 1. You want Philly. You want Philly. You want like Atlanta. Like those teams are good, but like you do not at all want to play Brooklyn or Milwaukee in round 1. I don't think. I think you're avoiding those spots. Like there are teams like the Cavs would throw a ticker tape parade if they could make the play-in and get slaughtered by the Bucks in round 1.
Us, Daddy. Yeah.
Grant Gilbert is commissioning art statues, but like NFTs, baby. But the other teams are going to be like. No, like Miami has like no, like you should like unless like there's a Giannis like knee sprain that he actually keeps him out. Like, there's no reason to, like, if James Harden just clubs for months and just doesn't look like James Harden, or he gets hurt or something, like, then maybe, or like Kyrie just get, like, whatever, like, maybe there's a little hole in the you can put yourself through, but like, I can't imagine. And like, you should be actively trying to be the 6th seed at all costs, I think, if you're these teams, because you're going to lose in round 1 otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good point. It feels like a good point to leave the show off on, Chris. That was our traditional run through the Eastern Conference. Lovely to do this again, buddy, even though the Raptors and Cavs are not where they were in the standings when we started this annual or biannual tradition. It's lovely to continue it on. Where can people check out all of your wonderful work?
Locked On Cavs, Forbes, folks over at Dime, where, like, I'm sure your Raptors readers already are reading Katie Heindall's amazing work. It's just like a pleasure to be her teammate over there. Bunch of other places. I have a Substack because I'm trying not to use the dumb website that is twitter.com. So if you want to follow my work, it's a good place to do it instead of going and following me on Twitter.
Excellent. Sorry for putting your handle on the graphic. That is the background for the show.
No, man. Look, gotta use the brain. Follow me, and then give me that boost so I can get like a homage, like influencer deal or something.
There you go. That's gonna do it. You can find me, of course, at Woodley Sean. In the next couple weeks, my annual tradition of ranking every Raptor is going to be back over at Raptors HQ. Probably next week we're looking at that, so that's very exciting stuff. And you can follow me on Twitter at Woodley Sean. You can see it on the page there. Subscribe to the YouTube page for both Locked On Raptors and Locked On Cavs. It's much appreciated. The subscribers are fantastic. We're near 600 on Locked On Raptors, so thank you so much to those who have smashed the subscribe button as we continue to push towards 1,000. That will do it, though. We'll talk to you again with another episode of Locked On Raptors or Locked On Cavs, depending on which feed you're listening to it on, in a day or two. I don't know when you're going next. I'm going on a Wednesday. I'm not sure about you, Chris. I won't speak for you, but I'm sure it'll be wonderful. Thanks so much for tuning in. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.